Board members, if we can get started here. Hey, I've got to leave a little early, so I've asked Vice Chair Brittany Cummins to chair the rest of the day. So we're going to turn the time over to Vice Chair Cummins to chair this meeting and the rest of the day. So, Vice Chair Cummins.
Okay, so the first item that we have is our approval of the minutes. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion before us is to approve the minutes of the June 8th, 2018 meeting. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, do we have anyone who wants to give any public comment today? Okay, then that is next. Okay. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is the monthly budget report. Director Carl Empey. Nope. Introduce yourself. Sorry.
There we go. Carl will actually not be joining us today. He managed to sneak away for vacation. I'm Todd Darrington, the finance manager, and I'll be filling in this morning, or afternoon. Wow, it's afternoon. I'll try to make it quick. Your financial reports contained in your board packet, just as a reminder, those are as of June 30th, not as of the period 13 full fiscal end. But just a couple of highlights to bring up. First off is the revenue. We are actually collected 1.66% more in revenue than originally budgeted. Things like agency transfers and dedicated credits were based off of previous years, where this year we received more for those services. Your expenses, or our expenses, excuse me, were actually under our current budget at the end of June of 2018. That's largely due to just a few last items that'll be trickling in, but we're down by 5.25% under the expected budgeted amounts. Most of that will be pushed through period 13, so you'll see that number is going to come up quite a bit. But at this time, are there any questions regarding expenses or revenues for USDB? Yes.
Okay. You gonna push a button? Okay, go ahead, Board Member Belknap.
Thank you. I'm not sure that it's an expense, but it is an income. I'm really curious as to, especially in your self-contained classrooms, why there's such a vacillation of numbers of students each month.
Specifically related to the number of students served, that section on the financial report?
And I kind of understand when it's consulting or it's not direct and they're in different places, but the self-contained I'm kind of curious about.
Sure. So that actual self-contained number, we are trying to correct the reporting procedures for that currently. We've got a new registrar who should be able to give us better and more accurate numbers. The largest reason for some of those variances are going to be related to students transferring in or out of certain areas.
But, well, I get that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. At the very beginning, where like December, I think that some of what happens is we have the directors report these numbers individually. And I think in this case, in some of these cases, the directors missed that month. A few directors missed that month.
Oh.
So, but the consistent number, 264, is, you can see that's more
right.
consistent.
It's getting better as the time's gone on.
Yes,
Okay.
and so we've corrected that and given timelines of when that has to be in, and we follow up.
Okay, I didn't say better, it just seems more accurate. Thank you.
Stable.
Thank you, Chair.
Any additional questions on the expenses or revenues? One last thing I just wanted to touch base on regarding our financial report was just the status of our enrichment funds. We have received all of our distributions from the trust lands as of June 30th, 2018, and we are actually under our expenses expected out of the enrichment fund projects by about 7.67% below what we expected. That number is somewhat smaller than we would expect simply because most of the projects that still are coming in were summer camps done in the July period, so we should see some of that still coming through. But at present, our financial situation looks good and revenue is collected. Any questions? Thank you.
Doesn't appear. Thank you very much. Okay, then we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Board members, it's nice to see you. It feels like it's been a while. And the room has changed. Looks good. First item I have is very exciting. We wanted to introduce you to our new director of the deaf school on our Ogden campus. And so Superintendent Tanner, if you would introduce Martin, and then we'll let him talk to the board for a moment. Did you push speak?
I did, just waiting to be acknowledged.
There you go.
All right, well, we had our KBS director, the director over in Ogden, retire after 35 years, and so we've been looking for a new replacement, and I am thrilled that we have found Martin. He's actually lives in Utah, but he worked for many years at the Florida School for the Deaf in administration there and other roles, and then he worked for 3 years for Sorensen, the company, Sorensen Communications, and then he interviewed for our position, and we're just thrilled. His positive energy and new perspective on things is just fun. So I'm going to turn it over to Martin, let him talk more about himself, give you a little bit about who he is.
I'll have to look this way, so can you hear me if I'm, okay. Having some technical difficulties here. Good afternoon, I'm thrilled to be here and honored as well. Thank you for the introduction, Michelle. I'd like to share a funny story that happened to me years ago on a train in New York City. A friend of mine and I, we were sitting there on the train chatting, and a sweet elderly lady, there were actually 2 or 3 of them on the train as well chatting, and they kept looking over at my friend and I a couple times, and I told my friend, they're talking about us. And a few seconds later, one of the ladies pulled out a piece of paper, and I told my friend, we're going to get this piece of paper in a minute from them. And sure enough, when I had my hand out ready before she even handed it over, and what was written on the paper was, can you read and write? And I decided to answer, no. And a few seconds later, the elderly lady said, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. And I said, yes, I know. Anyhow, the point and why I shared this story with you is it's my personal goal for every deaf and hard of hearing student in the state of Utah, the beautiful state of Utah, to be able to read and write. That's a passion of mine. I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. That's very exciting news for us, for sure. We're excited to have Martin with us. If you have phones with Face ID, you know it's slower than the thumbprint. It's really not an improvement, I'm just saying. Okay, next item of business is some not so great news about our Springville project. It looks like it's going to be delayed for a bit we've been tracking along. We've done a lot of value engineering. We've gone into some redesign, but the bids and the subcontractors and others are just so out of control right now. We are not the only project for the state having this problem. And so we're going to have to go back to the legislature. We have squeezed, and other than just compromising the project and not getting the school we need size-wise, which we, of course, we don't want to do. We're probably almost $2 million away from the cost. They've skyrocketed so much just in the time we've built. I went down and met with our project manager and I and our architects, and then I went and met with the director of DFCM, and he explained to us that they're seeing this elsewhere also. It's not going to be a request that comes out of the education fund this time necessarily, so you won't have to prioritize it. DFCM will be requesting it, and it'll happen. But they're hoping that instead of breaking ground right now, we were hoping to in July. We got some frantic calls at the last minute before all the bids came in saying, oh, everything's changed. We're not on track like we thought we were. And so they're going to go with a different process also. Instead of the design bid build process, which goes with the lowest bidder, they're going to do something called CGCM, construction, GCGM process, which means DFCM is going to hire a general contractor up front, and then they will manage this whole project, including the subs and everything like that, instead of just the way they've been doing it. And they said because the market's the way it is, they're going to be proceeding that way in the next few years with their projects. So it was just yesterday that I met with Jim Russell at DFCM, and he said, well, hopefully we'll be able to get the legislature to approve that money up front right at the beginning with their base budget, and they can start going right out to finding the contractors and so forth, even during the legislative session. And so we'll probably be delayed by about 6 months. But the obvious answer, I think, that comes up if I was a board member that I'd be asking is, so what happens with the kids? And of course, that's our main concern. The answer is they will continue to be underserved, but we will do our very best with itinerant teachers, working with the school districts. We've even talked about finding some temporary office space, you know, that we could use for classrooms, but kids need playgrounds and they need drop-off places, and it's just not, we're going to just work as closely as we can with the school districts in that southern region to kind of continue on with the program we have now and do whatever we have to make ends meet. We just know that there are kids out there that don't have a place to come yet, but they will as soon as we get this building done. So that's the not so great news, but it's the nature of the market that we're in. So I will keep you abreast of those developments if anything else develops in there. And we came up with extra money out of our carry forward that's committed to the project, as well as DFCM came in with some, and with all these pros and experts working on it, they just couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again enough to make the project stay on time. Are there any questions about that? Okay. Next, on your calendars, I hope you've been notified. If not, this is a good time to put it on your calendars. On the 17th of August is our Opening Institute Day, and that's when all of our employees, teachers, everyone comes back from summer, and we have our big opening day. We will have workshops. It'll be in our Salt Lake campus here. And if any of you are interested in attending, we would love to recognize you. You shouldn't feel obligated to do that if you don't want to, but you are more than welcome. It's always wonderful to have board members there. And so please notify us if you're interested in coming. It starts at 9 in the morning, and we'll have a general session for an hour or two, and then we divide into our 2 different schools, and then they divide into divisions, and we just have a great day coming back together. And I think we're going to have food trucks there to serve lunch as well. The next item is our annual report. I just wanted to give you a heads up that will be coming next month on schedule. It's due to the legislature by November, and so we will have that in our next board meeting for you to review. We'll have it ahead of time for you to review, and so if you have any questions about our year-end report, you're welcome to ask those at that time. And the last item I have is just a report on teacher openings right now, and maybe I thought we could turn the mics over to Carolyn and Michelle to tell us, and then any questions we might have about licensing. Carolyn, I'm not sure if we still have one person that might need the board to consider a competency-based license who's been amazing for us. And then Michelle, you can report on the openings we still have at the deaf school. We have a lot of openings this year that we normally don't have. So Carolyn, would you mind starting with that?
Absolutely. Good afternoon. I'm happy to report that we have filled all our teaching positions this year. We usually celebrate these type of years because it's usually far and few in between. We're always searching desperately for teachers. So I'm happy to report we had 2 openings and we filled both of those. I do have the one remaining teacher that is having difficulty with the licensure with the state of Utah. She has been with us for 3 years under a letter of authorization. Excellent teacher, excellent evaluations. She is ESL, she's an English second language speaker, so she's having difficulty passing the praxis test. We have been working with Travis in licensing in order for them to flag her application and see what we can do. It was one of those folks that I was hoping we could get the, oh my gosh.
Associate license?
Yes. But special ed teachers are not eligible for that licensure, that LEA-specific license, in fact. And so that is probably one person I will probably bring to the board for consideration. Hopefully we can get her licensed and get her through this system and the problems that she's experiencing with the praxis test. Other than that, I'm happy to report we're still interviewing for paraprofessionals positions, but that's not as critical for us as teaching positions. So we're starting off on a good foot this year. So I'm excited about that, but plan on seeing me hopefully next month with an application probably for a teacher that's been with us for 3 years. All right, thank you. Oh, any questions for me for the blind side? Okay.
All right, I don't have as happy news. We had 9 positions that we needed to fill. We've had people move out of state to different states. Some have accepted positions here, and some have retired. So I had 9 positions to fill. We also created a position to help with transition services to adult life. So we have filled 1 with a certified teacher. There are 4 others that would fill that are not certified teachers, and those were hired as of last week, because we really honestly had 9 positions open and 1 to 2 applicants that we could consider. So I have 2 positions in Ogden that are available. Those are my hardest ones to fill, are Ogden and Orem, because the nature of the number of, you know, how many students are there, and it seems Salt Lake City attracts more teachers. So I'm concerned about those because I have 2 in Ogden, I have 1 in Orem. I haven't had but 1 person interested in one of the positions in Ogden. I've had no one interested in the positions in Orem. And the other positions that we had in Salt Lake, and those are ones we filled. We had to fill, like, for example, someone who has a deaf studies degree, master's degrees. They have master's degrees, but not in deaf education. And so we'll be doing some training up, and I'm going to be working with them to see what we can do. Some of them actually may go back to school while they're teaching with us and see what they can do about getting a degree. And then I still have, like I said, these 4 positions. So we're going to be pushing some classrooms together and being very creative with how we're staffing some of the classrooms out there. One of them is an itinerant position, so we have to readjust caseloads. So it is what it is. The problem in the field that in deaf education is we're not competing locally. So our pay has to compete nationally, and it's Utah. And I try to drive them and tell them, you know, that Utah is an awesome place to work, and our cost of living is less, even though the pay looks less. But it doesn't seem to attract. And sometimes he will mention the culture. They know we're a different culture. So that's all good. That's all good. It is what it is with people. But I'm saying we have to draw people from out of state. And so sometimes it's harder to draw people from outside the state of Utah. If I had most of my applicants that work in state, they understand Utah's awesome. But people from out of state are a little concerned before they get here. So, and it's a critical need area. So.
Okay, we have a couple questions. Board Member Hanson?
Sorry. I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So you definitely need someone in deaf education. You don't need an educator who is fluent in ASL that may not have deaf education.
That's what we've been hiring, is people who are fluent in ASL, because if they can't communicate with the kids, I can't even use them. So my LSL positions are all filled. They're fine because we can hire special educators who don't need to know sign language. So we're okay with the LSL. We had some opening positions there. We filled those because we could fill them with special ed, and they don't need to know sign language. But those who need to know sign language, which are my remaining positions, they're harder to fill because I have an advanced skill set they need to
Okay, but
come
if
with.
you have if there's a special educator who knows ASL,
We will definitely consider
you
them.
would consider them?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
We are at that point.
Board Member Belknap?
Personally, I find this to be a little bit just timing to be well timed. How's that? That here we are. We've handcuffed our own school that they can't use special ed teachers with an associate license. I think that's distressing for this group of people. I think, and number 2 is that they're going to have to come to us every time they need an LEA specific or another one. So Joel, I guess I would ask this question of you. If mid-year or moving along, you have to keep coming back to ask us, would the LEA specific, for example, this ARL teacher that Carolyn was talking about, if they could get an LEA specific license, would that alleviate you having to come back and ask us every time on someone like that?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why we've been using a letter of authorization. And now that 3-year maximum has expired, and so we're just going to be coming back asking for whatever it is we have to do to keep her. She's very successful with the students. Yeah, yeah.
Follow-up.
Go ahead.
Okay, and I also know that the LEA, specific license we're working on, has a time limit on it as well to try and get people to move into the associate. I just want to say this, maybe we need to have the ability to have other languages for the praxis instead of just one language, especially when you look at our deaf and our blind ed.
Possibly.
Board Member Lear?
But another option would be to just say they don't have to be licensed. Would that be accurate? And I don't know exactly who I'm addressing that to, but instead of manufacturing what I feel like is a pretend kind of validation by the state, we just say you hire who you need to hire, and we don't pretend that we give you anything, but that would still allow you to hire the same capable person that you would want to hire. It just wouldn't have to be manipulating something to get there, is I guess what I'm
I
asking.
completely agree with that.
I have less of a hang up with that than what I view are sort of manufactured licenses.
We have this discussion quite often where we'll say, oh, I know this is the best person for our students. I just don't want to get penalized as, we don't want to be in trouble professionally for hiring someone that violates a board rule or licensure or so forth. So I agree with that.
Because I
That
just
approach.
kind of follow up to that, Brittany.
Yes, one follow-up?
Because I don't know that the law requires those teachers to be licensed currently. It just says, the NCLB used to require teachers to be licensed, but I don't think there is anything in state or federal law now that requires teachers to be licensed. It's just a sort of a preference that LEAs have to speak to their constituents, I think. That's
Really?
just- Well, I'd love for anybody to tell me. I have not seen anything in state law that, it says that the board may license teachers, but it doesn't require that all teachers be licensed, as far as I know.
So,
Okay with me.
Board Member Belknap, do you have
NCLB,
a comment?
we relied a lot on NCLB for that, which said that teachers, a certain percentage of teachers had to be licensed.
Do you have a answer to that, Michelle? Or are you? or-
No, you're not on.
It's similar to the.
You're not on.
Yeah, the other thing it impacts is funding, because if they're not licensed, they don't get the additional 4,200. So that impacts also for recruiting and getting, so the licensing.
That's a good point, but that could be changed, I guess.
Okay. Board Member Belknap?
I'm not going to complain.
I just want to ask Carol if that would be okay, Chair. So if we're going to waive licenses for this LEA, what are your thoughts on a different LEA?
The
Board Member
really,
Lear?
is it okay if I respond?
Yes.
I think this is a much bigger discussion, but if we have to choose between fake licenses, which is what I call APTs and to lesser extent ARL, if we have to choose between that and just saying, you hire who you want, but we're not going to give you a badge of approval at the state level, I would choose the latter. Because for me, that's trusting local control. You hire who you want, but I'm not going to pretend that, and I think it's more consistent with other professions, which sometimes other hospitals may hire certain kinds of professionals, but they don't expect the AMA to give them a license or manufacture something to call it a license.
Okay, thank you.
So this is an interesting conversation, and we have a couple rules up for discussion that we could bring this conversation in at our next committee meeting. So if there's any input on licensing or not.
Awesome.
So anyways, that would be a discussion for those meetings, so. Okay.
That-
Did you have anything else?
I believe that's the end of my report. We're just really excited to get the school year started, and I can't wait to see all the teachers and everyone next week when they come in, and here we go. Woohoo. Oh, Carolyn might have had a comment.
Do you want-
About the League of Innovative Schools, what's coming up? Get it on calendars or?
Probably next month.
Okay.
We're working on getting that, because we're hosting them in October. So we're going to try to launch the school year first, but simultaneously, we're laying all the groundwork for that. It's very exciting as well.
Great. Board Member Belknap, did you have another question? Okay.
I actually am more on Carolyn's page. The sooner we can get dates, the more opportunity we have to come, even if it's not full detailed. So even like when we meet with your advisory council, if we can get that on the calendar now, it'd be so helpful.
Yes.
Just, okay.
That
Just-
event is October 10th through 12th. And you're saying also our advisory council meetings. You should-
Just anything you have that you might want us to attend, either as a
Yeah.
full board or partial, the sooner it can get on someone's calendar, the more options
So
we have.
I think Emily Wheeler reaches out to us and we give her those dates. And so I'll try to follow through and make sure that the water gets to the end of the row there.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other discussion for USDB, then this portion of our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.